A very good morning to you and welcome to Rise and Shine Daily. It's a Thursday and the 30th day of March 2023. Quite a beautiful day for me especially. We'll tell you all about that much later on the show, but thank you so much for being a part of our show and welcome. My name is Janice Cobham.
Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Akwa Ibom State. My name is Uyai Anekan, and it's a really beautiful day, I must say, to be alive, and a great day to rise and shine wherever you are. Of course, we'd like to tell you to like, share, comment across all the social media platforms, and you can find all that at spectrumtv.ng. Of course, we'd also like to hear your contributions during the course of the program, so feel free to call us on the phone lines that will be displayed on your screen. You can also send us WhatsApp and text messages, and we will take your contributions on the show this morning. Thanks for joining us once again. But there is a big news! We can't give it till later. The energy is pumping. So rise and shine, family all over Nigeria. Today is Janice Cobham's birthday. It's
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
Of this awesome program that you enjoy 5 days a week, and she deserves all the accolades and all the celebration. So from all over Nigeria,
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
yeah,
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
So beautiful. I'm emotional right now. Oh yeah, I didn't expect this to be coming as the first thing we are going to be doing on set today.
You deserve it, absolutely.
Yeah.
You deserve the first.
Thank
deserve the
you.
first.
Thank
Happy
you so
birthday.
much. Thank
How does
you.
it feel today?
Oh my God. Like, of course, you know that your birthday is one day that you look forward to. Yeah. And even though sometimes it could be mixed with emotions, like, but yesterday I saw myself being very grateful. Yeah, totally grateful. I don't think I asked God for one thing. I didn't ask him for anything yesterday. Through to my, through to this morning, I was just thanking him for everything that he's done so far. And I told him, I said, I'm not going to ask you for anything. Let me just say thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the depth of my heart, for bringing me thus far. Because when I look back at my life, I know that everything that pertains to me, everything that makes me who I am today, is because of the effulgence of God's grace, and I don't take it for granted at all. I don't take it for granted.
Gratitude is a good way to even multiply. It's a good place and it's a good feeling. And the energy right here is ecstatic. You want to be in our studios right now. It's a happy day, and we do hope that you can also share in our joy. But of course, Nigeria is the blessed country that we love, and like you would always say, we are here to talk about the country that we all love. A lot of things are happening, and like we always say, we are going to have a lot of conversations springing off the board of the just concluded elections, and there's just so many things to talk about. Like you would always have flash news. Do you have something for us today?
Well, no flash news precisely, but obviously there are just a lot of things happening. The elections in Nigeria has not really settled down, and we're wondering why exactly. A lot of people are dissatisfied with the outcome of the elections. We've seen different protests around the country, people going to the embassy to protest, people in different places protesting, and all of that. But let's just look at some very important stories that sprang up yesterday from the Department of State Services, and that's saying that some key political players are plotting to foist an interim government in Nigeria. Now, this is according to the Department of State Services, and they're saying that President-elect Bola Tinubu is due for inauguration on May 29. But in a statement on Wednesday, that was yesterday, Dr. Peter Afunanya, who is the DSS spokesperson, stated that some persons have weighed various options, which includes foisting interim government after obtaining frivolous court injunctions to forestall the inauguration of the new executive, administration, and legislative houses at the federal and state levels. Of course, he also said that such persons were also considering sponsoring endless violent protests in major cities to warrant a declaration of state of emergency. The services also considers the plot being pursued by these entrenched interests as not only an aberration but a mischievous way to set aside the constitution and undermine civil rule, as well as plunge the country into an unavoidable or an avoidable crisis. Yeah, I know that how do I put it now? This particular conversation sprang up yesterday from the DSS, and a lot of Nigerians are not taking this particular information by the State Department of State Services with a pinch of salt, because they think that it's something that if they actually found out that there's a plot to foist an interim government, then the DSS, which is more like a secret service, should go ahead to use the information they have, to do the job they are supposed to do by bringing these perpetrators to book, and not necessarily actually coming out on the pages of their Twitter handle to make this kinds of assertion.
It's a major problem. Now, there is an entire illegality, and this is seen as totally unacceptable in a democracy. And to the peace of the country, as it were. Now, the pressing problem here is the fact that the machinization is taking place after the peaceful conduct of the elections in most parts of the country, and this is just like a serious problem. Now, the DSS declared its support for a hitch-free handover come May 29, and vowed to work assiduously in that direction in spite of this information that they came to give. But consequently, the service strongly wants those organizing to thwart democracy in the country to retract from their devious schemes and orchestrations. But I think another problem stretched into this is the fact that stakeholders, notable judicial authorities, media, and civil society are enjoined to be watchful and cautious to avoid being used as instruments to subvert peace and stability to the nation. While its monitoring continues, the DSS will not hesitate to take decisive and necessary legal steps against these misguided elements to frustrate their obnoxious intentions. Now, this is what the DSS said. Like you began to insinuate, the primary problem is the DSS is more like a facts gathering institution that's supposed to be the ones who work on
an
the
intelligence body,
to find out these kinds of things. And it's believed like there's more like a process that they should go through. Once they have discovered this kind of information, we believe there should be a kind of allegiance with the Nigeria police force and all of that, and they begin to make findings, an investigation into how true this move is. Some Nigerians even raised an eyebrow to the fact that just a couple of weeks ago, I think that was about 2 weeks ago, that is when the DSS opened an official Twitter handle, and then people were wondering, what's with DSS coming to Twitter all of a sudden? They have not been there. What new game are we expecting to see on the board? Now, the DSS is not supposed to be like an information rendering organization. Why are they the ones giving this information? And you are currently asking that judicial authority, media platforms, civil society organizations should not find themselves in a place where they corroborate with, these agencies, quote and unquote, that are working towards an interim government to be used of them. But you, as an intelligence, institution, you have already given yourself to be used because you're lending a voice to it. Although you are saying you're, for a heat-free handover.
Okay, so let's quickly look at a particular video by Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, who is a senior fellow, Center for Democracy and Development. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Be planning to demonstrate, and they will demonstrate. Nigerians are always demonstrating, and Nigerians have a right to demonstrate. So that's not an issue. That's normal everyday life. That a lot of Nigerians are dissatisfied, and they express themselves as the Constitution and our laws allow them to do. The second point they are saying is that because Nigerians will demonstrate, that will lead to a declaration of a state of emergency. And that's where I lost it completely. A declaration of a state of emergency is done by the National Assembly and the President. So is the DSS telling Nigerians that the President and the National Assembly are plotting to prevent an elected president from assuming office? If that's their conclusion, then they shouldn't do a general statement to Nigerians. They should do a memo to the president and to the leadership of the National Assembly saying that we've discovered you, this is what you are trying to do, and we ask you to stop. And then the question of whether the courts will stop the swearing in of the president. We have a constitution based on the separation of powers. So you have the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, and each one plays their role. Cases have been taken to court. The courts will process, they will adjudicate, they will take a decision. And whatever decision the courts take, we are bound to accept it. Well, that's my position, that if they have evidence that some people are plotting, then they should go ahead and do their work, which is to get those people who are plotting to cause trouble. But my real concern is that the scenarios they are creating are scenarios that could only be practiced out by the president and by the National Assembly. You know, Nigeria has suffered a lot from multiple forms of violence, from jihadism through to secessionism, militancy, banditry, kidnapping, and all that. But the fact of the matter is that over the last 1 year, the level of violence has been going down. The security agencies have been increasing their success in dealing with these harbingers of violence. In fact, the security services have just announced that over 50,000 Boko Haram militants have surrendered to the military over the past 1 year. The new planes, the Tucano aircraft they have had, has been very successful in finding out terrorists and bandits and dealing with them. Every day in the newspapers, we hear reports of successes by our security agencies. So the facts before us as Nigerians is that there is no imminent danger looming on the horizon. What is on the horizon is improvement in the security situation. And that's why I've had great difficulties understanding the message from the Department of State Security. What I will say is that the Electoral Commission has declared Ahmed Tinubu to be the winner of the presidential election. Some of the candidates that contested against him do not agree with that verdict, and they've gone to court. And the court is going to adjudicate on the matter. So, what we have to do as citizens of this country is, at this point, we accept the decision of the Electoral Commission. We go ahead And once the time for swearing in comes in, of course he would be sworn in as the next president of the country. And President Buhari will retire to his farm in Daura. If eventually the courts declare otherwise at the level of the Supreme Court, then that becomes the new decision for the country. So it's really a question of allowing institutions play their role. I think we should avoid confusing Nigeria plan.
Yeah, exactly. It's a question of allowing institutions to play their roles. And like you was saying towards the tail end, we should cease trying to also confuse Nigerians with what roles, what establishments are playing. You know, because today you see that you know, we are doling out this card. This past few weeks, it's been the CBN, you know, acting like, you know, some kind of watchdog for the country by withdrawing cash from the system, you know, saying it's for security, saying it's for this. And all of a sudden now we're also having the DSS come out with this information. Like the Brain rightly said, there is a process that information should have even followed, even writing to the presidency that this is the plot that we're hearing. Not forgetting that like over a week now, these allegations have been going back and forth.
Exactly. From the likes of Femi Fani Kayode, I remember that he made that allegation some time ago, and he came under serious backlash by Nigerians, and at some point he came out to say that he was sorry. You remember when he said some politicians, some politicians, you know, were in some kind of marriage with some military officers, you know, to try to force an interim government or to try to do a coup or something along those lines. And here we are again talking about, you know, a possible interim government. Let's not forget, you know, that the government of the day that President Muhammadu Buhari has instituted, more like a presidential transition committee headed by the secretary to the government of the federation, Bas Mustafa, and all of that. And I think that, you know, these transition committee has also started work in earnest to make sure that by 29th of May that the transition is going to be smooth to the next administration. I remember also that President Muhammadu Buhari has said that as much as the elections are over and we have a president-elect, he's going to make sure that transition to the president-elect is going to be smooth and seamless. So we having a situation where there are just some sparks of fire here and there, you know, interim government. I think the last time we had an interim government was 30 years ago, and that was after the 1993 elections where Moshood Abiola won the elections, and, you know, there was this kind of chaos too in Nigeria. And the likes of Chief Ernest Shoneko was brought in as the interim head of state at the time, you know, and all of that. But again, a lot of people have even shunned the idea of an interim government. Now that's because it tells a lot on the kind of democracy that we have. It scuttles the democratic process of any country. And I remember also that someone like Reuben Abati also said it was anarchy for even people to try to think of an interim government. So whatever it is that we have right now as a country, I think that's to protect our democratic ethos. You know, we are still young in democracy, whether we like it or not. I think we are barely 23 years into democracy and all of that. So we need to protect our democratic processes. We need to, you know, protect everything that we have as a country. I think the last thing that we want as a nation right now is a military takeover. We do not want that to happen. So when we begin to hear of interim government here, interim government there, I think that government should do the right thing, and that's stepping up and beefing up security. Now, we were talking about the DSS coming on social media, on Twitter. You made mention of the fact that they just opened the Twitter handle. So is it also possible that maybe some disgruntled element under the guise of DSS are those, you know, that opened a Twitter handle? But again, I know that a lot of people have made mention of the fact that, look, DSS, you're not supposed to be the Ministry of Information to give information to Nigerians. If you find this kind of intelligence report, is highly intelligence report, you have to swing into action, you know, and make sure that, yes, we get the people. So at the end of the day, Nigerians are not hearing that there is a plot to cause an interim government. We are hearing that, oh, there was a plot, but we have arrested those. We have arrested the situation, and this is where we are today. So I think that they should rather swing into action than necessarily coming out on the pages of social media, Twitter, to come and be telling Nigerians, look, we have an information that there's going to be, or some people are plotting to have an interim government.
Yeah, the information, of course, is going to be throwing Nigerians into the balance, because we are already at a place where we are saying we are not satisfied with the results of the elections, as it were. Questions are being asked, and the two major opposition parties have currently moved to the court. But then when we are looking at an interim government, one would like to question, are there pros and cons for an interim government? If we push for an interim government, will it be to the good of the country? Will there be some good that an interim government would do to the country, or is it going to be entirely negative? Now, some quarters will say that an interim government at this time would be good to give us a foundation for us to renew the democracy of our country. Does an interim government have to be militarized? No. It doesn't have to be militarized. It means we can have, civilians being instituted to see through that. But the problem with having an interim government is, if you are not careful also, the system can be hijacked.
Exactly.
That's the problem that we are looking at. But if we are looking at how we can rebirth the country, because where Nigeria currently is where everyone is looking forward to a new Nigeria, and it looks like the tussle is very intense. I mean, we are talking about what would we say, when a woman is about to deliver, the birth pangs is usually really intense. So it feels like Nigeria is going through a birth pang. At that time also, Janice, you would want to be careful with the kind of information you're giving.
Exactly.
You want to be careful with what you're eating, and eating here is information that we are giving out, because we've seen how information has swung the country in the last couple of weeks. It was one person saying this is what you're going to experience if you're not voting for this party, and that is exactly what we saw. And then coming out with this kind of information right now, we'll just hope is that all hands are currently on deck to make sure that this is, nipped in the bud, that it is effectively handled. It must not spiral, against the country at this time.
Yeah, definitely. Now, before we even take Twitter reactions to this particular conversation, let's see what the People's Democratic Party is saying, as well as the All Progressive Congress. Now, I'll just take a line or two. It says that the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressive Congress and the People's Democratic Party have challenged the Department of State Services to get tough with plotters of the interim national government. Now, yesterday in Abuja, it was said that there was a push for interim government, which was it is very unconstitutional, adding that the plotters should be arrested. I think that this just caps it all for me. So if the DSS is saying there is some plot of an interim government, then go ahead, make some arrests, and let's know that yes, it's actually true. But when you bring up some kinds of conversations like this, now you know that there are some quarters where Nigerians are thinking that, look, the DSS is not saying the truth at all. So let's just take reactions and see what's happening on the streets of Twitter and how Nigerians are reacting to this particular information from the State Services Department. So this is from Sir David Onyemaizu. It says, so DSS uncovers a so-called plan to install an interim government and comes to post a press release on Twitter. Make it make sense. Isn't the DSS supposed to be a sophisticated intelligence unit? And even if such plans are in place, why expose it on social media and utter joke?
So we have here Chukudi. So DSS, SSS have gone political. Nigeria is a ticking time bomb and about to explode. Janice, this is such a serious statement, because we have seen institutions that are supposed to be apolitical in the last couple of weeks and months have a different undertone. We saw that with INEC, we saw that with the CBN, and this is now the DSS.
Okay, Mariano Cohn says, so DSS said they uncovered a plot to install an interim government instead of swearing in the president-elect. Really? Why are we making it news? I'm shocked. Okay.
So this is Anna Dede. Says, so DSS is now threatening well-meaning Nigerians, and they had nothing to say to MC Oluomo as he terrorized Lagos. Nigeria is truly a country where defenseless citizens can be threatened by its government. Okay, this is a really serious, like we always say, the things that we're supposed to treat as important, we do not. And the things that, supposed to be swept under the carpet or, treated differently, we now give it the energy of the opposing situation. So it's just, the questions are too many. But I think I would lean back on the tweet that is saying, how come we are having a lot of our institutions that are supposed to be standalones becoming political. Whether it is directly or indirectly, the tones are now too obvious, because we cannot say of a truth that INEC is an independent electoral umpire. It seems to be that there are interferences and a lot of connivances going on, and that is why we have the kinds of results we had with elections. CBN also gave us a really different leg. For the longest time in this country, we were in a place where you say you cannot be the central bank governor and be political at the same time. But we even saw the central bank governor push up to, aspiring to become the president of the country. It wasn't quite treated squarely. Now we are having the DSS give us information about things happening in the country. Who is running the influence of things in this country? Who is calling the shots?
Really big questions, I must say. Like Nigerians have said, the Department of State Services is supposed to be an intelligence gathering unit and not necessarily an information department. So if they feel that they have found an information as critical as that to the detriment of the country, then the best thing for them to do is to swing into action and make sure that they get the culprits. Like the PDP and even the All Progressive Congress have challenged them, they should go ahead and get those involved in trying to plot for an interim government. But that's where we'll just leave that conversation right now. And I'm sure that when we open the phone lines, when we are having our papers, Nigerians can also happen this particular conversation and let us know what you think about it. But let's talk about Uyo. Let's talk about something happening in the oral parts of Akwa Ibom State.
Of course, on Wednesday, we saw the Senate urging the Central Bank of Nigeria to liaise with commercial banks in Oron local government area of Akwa Ibom State to resume operations. Now, this followed the stoppage of banking activities as a result of attacks on some commercial banks in the area during the cash crunch and scarcity issue. Now, the Senate's resolution was a sequel to a motion at plenary on urgent need for CBN to liaise with commercial banks to resume operations in Oron local government of Akwa Ibom. Now, the motion was sponsored by Eyakenyi Etim, who is the PDP Akwa Ibom South. Now, Mrs. Etim, in her presentation, said the Naira redesign and cashless policy of CBN had caused a cash crunch, resulting in customers rushing to banks for money where the monies were not available. She said this resulted in some incidents where bank customers, out of anger, attacked bank staff because of the non-availability of money to dispense. Now, Oron was one of the places where agitations by customers rose and protests were seen, which caused commotion in banking halls. Of course, we had several pictures and videos coming out of Oron where banking facilities were destroyed. Now, they have called on the Nigerian police, who have indicated that the agitation was initially peaceful until it was hijacked by hoodlums who attacked banks in Oron and destroyed property. Now, since the incident occurred on the 17th of February, all banking operations have been suspended in the entire local government till we speak. And Mrs. Etim, who is the deputy governor-elect of Akwa Ibom State, said the situation was worrisome given the strategic roles that the banks played in commercial activities and economy. Of course, Akone Ayanye is from she is the deputy, and she is from the Oron Nation. So of course she's speaking up for her constituents as of now. But now the Oron local government comprises 5 communities. So when you hear that banking activities have been stalled, you're seeing that financial activities have been stalled for Umbo, for Okobo, for Udon Uko, and Urefon Oruko, and Oron itself. So that's a lot of communities under intense pressure.
I can just imagine how hardship, how intense the hardship in those areas where are at the moment. And it's really disheartening. But again, it brings to mind, sometimes where people get so angry, so grievous, and destroy properties. This is always the effect of what happens. Because when I saw this news yesterday, I was like, oh, succor has finally come to the people of Oron in terms of, cushioning the hardship that they've been experiencing since the vandalism that went on in those areas because of the cash crunch. Now, I think that Nigerians should begin to learn lessons. You don't have to unleash carnage, on properties, government properties, private properties, just because you're angry or just because you've been pushed to the wall, because at the end of the day you will definitely bear the brunt. Now look at a situation where there's been no banking activities in Oron and those neighboring communities for the past how many months since that incident actually happened in that area. So I think that it brings me to the NSAS protest again, where there was a lot of carnage, wrecked on different properties across the nation. That I know how long it took a particular communication agency in Calabar, to be able to put up their facilities again together. But Nigerians, saw. I like to use our phrase. They just shaggy, because you see people coming out to like retrieve lines. They're coming out as early as 4 a.m. in the morning and queuing. And as you're coming, it's still the same thing that happened during the cash scarcity. As you're coming and thinking that you're going to be number 1, you'll be number 70 something, and you're wondering, the people actually sleep on the at the gate of this company or something. So when we destroy things, bottom line is we get to suffer. It comes back to us. So what's the essence of destroying things? So look at the people of Oron. For the past how many months there's been no banking activities. I really wonder how they get cash. I really wonder how they even get to feed. And we are not even talking about a situation where the cash is just there. There's no cash. We are still talking about NLC trying to say that, we are going on strike because CBN is not putting enough money into circulation, and then you're going to even destroy the little facility access. Because
another problem is going to be the fact that we are even talking, it's not like the city center, it's not like the state capital where you know that every 10 minutes or 5 minutes drive you're going to see a bank. We're talking local government, so you are sure that banking facilities are even sparing. In the whole of Oron, you might even have maybe like 5 to 10 banks taking care, catering for those communities. So it's not like every 5 minutes drive then you see a bank. So if it's not working with bank A, you go to bank B. So this has been a problem, but it's good to see that the Senate has waded into the matter, and hopefully solution is going to come because the Senate has given word. Just as we even wrap this up to quickly get to the news brief, I think it's Kenya now that is revising their constitution to say, yes, you can protest, but before you protest, you're going to pay money for damages ahead. So that when you damage anything, we'll use your money to repair those things. We're not saying you can't protest, but there has to be new ground rules. You even keep money for the streets to be cleaned up after your protest. So maybe some of these things will be reviewed. Although you have a problem that you want to air your views on, go ahead, do so, but you will keep money so that, once this is done, we'll repair the banks for you to go back and have services. But we need to be careful, like Johnny said. Do not destroy what you always have to come back to. It's our nation. But at this time, let's get to the news brief desk, where we have Mary Joseph on standby to bring us tidbits of global news. And when we return, there's a lot to talk about Nigeria, and we'd like for you to still be here to do that with us. Don't go away.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people. But there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421, and on free-to-air. with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by cross them. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Government, Secretary General, delegates.
This will be labeled Nigeria for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses in county.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum. Live from Uyo, I am Mary Joseph. Begin today's news brief with a report that the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party have challenged the Department of State Services to get tough with plotters of the interim national government. The councils, in separate statements in Abuja, said the push for the interim national government was unconstitutional, adding that the plotters should be arrested. Recall that the DSS had earlier on Wednesday raised the alarm over a plot by some Nigerians to thwart the May 29 inauguration of the presidential-elect Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Away from that, the federal government has been tasked to arrest and probe perpetrators of various acts of electoral violence during the just concluded general elections before it's too late. This is after the National Human Rights Commission (NHRC) disclosed that it received 450 complaints of human rights abuses and violations during the polls. According to the Commission Executive Secretary Tony Ojukwu, SAN, while 300 complaints of human rights violations were received during the Presidential and National Assembly elections, 150 cases were recorded during the governorship and state houses of assembly polls. Meanwhile, embattled new national carrier, Nigeria Air, and concerned parties will know their fate on April 25 when the court resumes hearing. Recall that the Federal High Court Abuja, where the case was transferred to from Lagos, is to determine the property of the new jurisdiction. Reports say the new date, however, may have sealed the fate of the airline and its takeoff within the lifespan of the current administration that ends in May. Local carriers under the aegis of the Airline Operators of Nigeria had approached the Federal High Court in Lagos seeking interpretation of the law of the process of procuring services of Ethiopian Airlines from operation of the proposed Nigerian national carrier. We head now to the foreign scene where Taiwan's President Tia Sing-win has said relationship with the United States has never been closer. This is as Beijing has warned her visit could lead to serious confrontation between China and the US. TSA said from the city where she is making the first of two planned stopovers in the United States on either side of an official visit to Central America that Taiwan's FAC faces tremendous challenges. And finally, in sports, Nigeria's international Alex Iwobi has lamented the bumping pitches the Super Eagles play on during home games, saying it has negatively affected the team. Jose Pizarro boasts a star-studded squad with an average age of 25 years, and despite having Napoli's Victor Osimhen, Samuel Chukwueze, Moses Simeon, Joe Aribo, Wilfred Ndidi, among other stars in their ranks. The Eagles failed to qualify for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar and were also beaten by Guinea-Bissau at the Moshood Abiola National Stadium in Abuja last Friday in one of their Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. We'll have details of these stories and more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine where we have Janice and Uyai on standby. Do have a wonderful morning.
Government, Secretary General, delegates.
His Excellency Lagos Nigeria for Spectrum TV to report for the lapses to county.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai and Yekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai and Yekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
One truth, not more.
All right, thank you so much for being there. Of course, remember, it's still Rise and Shine Daily, and today we have brought you so many conversations making the rounds in the country. We just came off the news brief desk with Mary Joseph telling us tidbits of global reports, and of course, we talked about the fact that there is some information going around from the Department of State Services that there are plots, to cause an interim government in the country. And of course, Nigerians are saying if you have had this kind of intelligence gathering, go ahead and do the needful, which is arresting those that are supposed to be the perpetrators and not necessarily coming on the pages of social media to put these kinds of information there. But we went away from there and talked about the wreckage of commercial banking systems in some parts of Warren in Akwa Ibom State, where the reps are saying, look, that the CBN should make sure that they put things together, to make sure that commercial banking systems begin operations again in those areas to give succor to those people in Oron and neighboring communities as well. And that's great news. But right now, let's look at what the papers have to say. The front pages of the newspapers. What are the stories making the rounds on the front pages of our national dailies this morning? So it's now time for Daily Spotlights.
Okay, on the front pages of our national dailies this morning, we'll start with Nigerian Tribune. And the very first and big story there says, interim government plot real, DSS reveals. Says key players behind plot identified. All of that story can be found on page 2. Senate set to recover 6 trillion unpaid ground rent from property owners. Page 2. BVN fraud. 513 names linked to 1,370 accounts. Investigation begins. Page 3. That from the Amnesty Office. We also have here Kaduna tops as 17 outgoing government gross state IGR in 7 years. NBS. Gunshot injury. Court orders Ametokun Ondo government to pay motorcyclists 30 million naira. We also have here Lagos drivers protest hike in Agbero fees, commuters stranded. We also have here FEC approves 24.2 billion naira free internet facilities for 20 airports, schools and markets. US recovers $53 million from illegal contract involving Diazeni, Oluko and Omokore. We also have here, I won't fail Nigerians, rather. My manifesto, not mere words, says Tinubu at 71. Kano APC governorship candidate accepts defeat, congratulates governor-elect. And those are all the stories that we have on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune.
Okay, quite interesting stories there. Let's take our next paper, and that will be the Daily Sun. Of course, the DSS story is also a story on the front page of the Daily Sun this morning. It says DSS confirms plot for interim government, and the writer says fingers political actors, others, and there's another writer that says, I'll build country of your dream, Tinubu assures Nigerians. Moving forward, there's a story here that says no plans to print Biafra currency. Statement by IPOP. The writer says denies formation of kangaroo government. Denies formation of kangaroo government. You can find details of that story on page 29. US raises students work visa fee by 50%. You can find details of that story on page 26. Google poll, INEC presents certificates to Kanu, Oyo, Benue, Ebonyi, Nasarawa, Rivers, others governors-elect. The writer says Bauchi Akwa Ibom Election Tribunal received 31 petitions, and you can find details of these stories on page 26 and 29. Bandits execute 5 victims for failure to meet ransom deadline in Niger. The writer says threatened to kill more, free 3 women. You can find details of that story on page 4, but that's quite a sad story. FEC approves 95 billion naira for roads in Ekiti, Ondo State, and OK's 24 billion naira contract for broadband projects at airports, varsities, and markets. Court fixes April 25 for judgment in suits by airline operators against Ethiopian Airlines, CJ, and others. We move now to the very last story on the Daily Sun. It says MPC rules out religious considerations during census. And there's another story here that says Senate sets up committee to recover 6 trillion naira unpaid ground rents. And that's all that we have on Daily Sun today.
All right, we move to our very next paper, and that would be we take the Punch next.
Yeah, the Punch next. The Punch next.
And the very big story on the Punch newspaper says arrest interim government plotters. APC PDP tells DSS. We also have here saboteurs planning court orders. Protests. Oh wow, okay. Saboteurs are the ones planning court orders, to put it in plain English. Okay, protests to stop Tinubu's inauguration, says agency. Interim government's early anti-constitution campaigners, pseudo-democrat, says APC PDP. 26 children, 125 adult Libyan returnees land in Lagos. Ramadan, election riggers, Yahoo boys fasting in vain, says cleric. That's a funny one. Okay, so burglars jailed 7 years for robbing patients. Jonathan, page 5. Whitney, Christian school workers trial begins today. We also have here presidency, rare privilege, I won't squander, says Tinubu. Federal government plans sanctions as 633 die in oil operations. Page 19. Our last story here says, how I'll tackle police corruption, says PSC chairman. And that's all we have on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
Okay, so let's quickly look at our very next story, our very next paper. I think that would be, okay, see. Okay, the Nation newspaper. Now, let's find out what the Nation newspaper says. Of course, we still have the DSS story being very prominent on the Nation newspaper. It says DSS warns interim government plotters of their consequences, and banks worried over low cash deposit by customers. We also have the Tinubu, my mandate, best birthday gifts ever from Nigerians. And We also have FEC OK's 24.2 billion naira for free internet in airports and others. Incoming governors unfold agenda for states, and musician Portable faces police probe. And we also have that election credible, fairly conducted, says Adeyeye. Of course, conversations on the elections will definitely continue for the longest of time, going by all of the actions and inactions of Nigerians towards the elections as well. And Tinubu saying best mandate, best birthday gift. Actually, his mandate is the best birthday gift by Nigerians. Well, we still wish him a happy birthday. Yesterday he marked his 71st birthday. So happy birthday to President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Yeah, I think we'll take our last paper.
Okay, our last paper
this day
coming up is This Day newspaper, and the big story there is still making the rounds on DSS. Entrenched interests pushing for interim government to undermine civil rule. Its fishing expedition, LP scoffs at agency. We also have here Obi, attempts to ascribe ethno-religious motives to obedient movement will fail. We also have here Faso Ranti to Adebanjo. It's illegal to assert Obi won presidential poll, page 42. We have here MDA's accounting officers risk 5-year jail term as National Assembly passes federal audit bill. My election, greatest birthday gift, says Tinubu. Declares campaign promises remain his bond. Osibaja, APC government, party leaders, others felicitate president-elect on 71st anniversary. Shell pays federal government over $4.5 billion in royalties, taxes, others to Nigeria, page 5. And that's all we have on the front page of This Day newspaper.
Okay, so quite interesting stories at this point. The DSS story seems to be the most talked about story on the front pages of our national daily this morning. And just like we had discussed earlier, Nigerians are saying if you have such an information and intelligence information, then be swift enough to bring the perpetrators to book. And it's also good to know that, they had, like they've said on the papers this morning, that fingers have been pointed. There are people that have been pointed as the perpetrators of that particular action or inaction, based on what they're doing. But I think that we want real time consequences meted against these people. But just like you said again, are we looking at an interim government as something that is totally wrong, or we are going to be looking at an interim government, from the side of positivity and not actually, okay, so it stalls democracy, it's unconstitutional, which we know it is, very, very unconstitutional. But when we have a situation where a lot more Nigerians are dissatisfied with the elections and the outcome of the elections, what do we do in the interim? Do we go ahead to swear in somebody that Nigerians feel that, no, this person is not supposed to be the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Or what exactly? These are questions that are begging for answers at this point in time. And that's why we see that there's so much effort coming from the president-elect, Bola Asiwaju Tinubu, in trying to assuage Nigerians, towards accepting him. There's just so much he's trying to do. This is more like from the papers this morning, it's more like the third time he's come out to say, oh, Nigerians, don't worry, I'm going to make sure that I keep to my promises, my campaign promises, my blueprints and all of that. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So I think it's about the third time. He's not even been sworn in, and he's coming again and again and again to reiterate some of the things that he's going to be doing for us. And just like we were talking about it yesterday, where he said that his colloquium is going to be put on hold because he needs Nigerians to come together to pray for the unity of the country, which means that, you know, there's some underlying thoughts that the unity of Nigeria is being threatened at this point in time, and it's quite you know, disheartening to know that, okay, it is because of the election that is threatening the unity of the country. But yeah, let's just open the phone lines for Nigerians to be part of this conversation. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, especially with the big story this morning. DSS uncovers plots to install or foist an interim government in the country. Is it totally wrong to have an interim government? Remember what happened in 1993? There was an interim government, and Chief Shoneka was the interim government. And there was also the smooth takeover in 1999 when Chief Olusegun Obasanjo actually came out of prison and contested for the elections and won. There was that smooth transition from Chief Shoneka to Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. So what is really the thing about an interim government that we are so scared of having, or what is not about an interim government that Nigerians actually think that that is the best place for us to be at this point in time until all of the election issues are trashed out properly?
There's a lot of questions back and forth when we are talking about this interim government. Of course, it has flooded all of the national dailies that we have, and we've also seen the APC and People's Democratic Party tell the DSS to move ahead, investigate and make arrests to you know, those perpetrating or attempting to foist this particular interim government. But then let's begin with your call this morning. Hello, good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
Okay, I am Azuka. Hello, good morning. Osai.
Okay, please make sure you turn down the volume of your television set.
Osai.
Azuka, where are you calling from? Where are you calling from, Azuka?
I'm calling from Delta State.
Okay,
Nigeria.
Azuka from Delta State. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. I am fully in support of the interim government.
Okay, give us your
In
reasons.
the sense that, yes, I am fully in support in the sense that if we look at what is going on in this country, people are not pleased. We are not pleased with what has already happened in the country. We saw what happened in the election. Many of us are not happy. People are crying every day. We need a change in this country. If the interim government is going to bring a good solution to Nigeria, not to use as a dog to intimidate the truth in this country, then we don't need it. But if the interim government is going to speak the truth and stand by the truth, for the court to stand to speak the truth, that is what we are looking on to. We don't need a dog. We don't need a security dog that is going to hunt the Nigeria from the truth. We want the truth in this nation.
All right, thank you so much, Azuka.
Government, because we don't want the handover that will cause a chaos, a problems, pain, destruction, death in this country.
All right, thank you so much, Azuka.
In this country.
Thank you.
We don't want problem. One Nigeria is what we are living for.
One Nigeria is what we are pleading for. Thank you very much for making your contributions on the show.
And ending on that note,
yes,
that one Nigeria is what we are looking for. But like he said, you know, an interim government. What's the how do I put it now? What's the
possible benefit?
Not even possible benefit, but what's the possibility that when we have an interim government, you know, it won't be such that we'll be hijacked at the end of the day, because that is basically the fear a lot of Nigerians are having. Let's not have an interim government and at the end of the day the government is hijacked and we are going back to you know, a military rule. But I think one thing that Nigerians should know is that an interim government is not constitutional. But let's take this call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Please do well to turn down the volume of your television sets. Thank you. Okay. Good morning. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Mr. Emmanuel, calling from Anambra State.
We didn't get the name.
Mr. Emmanuel, calling from Anambra State.
Okay, Emmanuel from Anambra State. Go ahead, sir. Oh, dropped call
okay,
there.
We hope Emmanuel can call us back.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, you know, interim government is not constitutional constitutional in the Nigerian constitution. And is this something, now we've been hearing these conversations for weeks. The fact that when we heard it initially was more like treated with kids' gloves and then is resurfacing is a major concern. But then we'll talk about that after this particular call. Hello, good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Please, I'm calling from Onisha.
Onisha, what's your name?
Mr. Tunde.
Did you say Tunde?
Yes.
Tunde from Onisha. All right,
Okay,
please go ahead.
Go ahead, Tunde.
Hello.
Go ahead, we can hear you. Go ahead, make your contributions.
My contribution is that I don't think there is need for any interim government. They have declared that somebody is a winner, so I don't see any reason why it will be an interim government. So that's my own submission.
All right, thank you so much. Very short and
Very
precise. Yes.
We don't think it's necessary. I mean, let's, like you'd always say, let the losers during the elections sheathe their swords and move on, and let's see how we can collectively put our hands together and move our country forward. But it seems to be that the percentage of Nigerians that are dissatisfied with the proceedings of the just concluded election is alarmingly overwhelming. That's the issue that we are having.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line of all of these conversations that we are having. Let's not also forget
all the
that
problems we've had in the season.
In the season, and then all of the protests that has been breaking out because of this particular result. And I think that that's why the Department of State Services is also having this feeling that there is some kinds of plots, and like they said, you know, pointed out that's why we are having different kinds of protests across the country, because there are some elements that think that, you know, they have to foil the inauguration come May 29. Hello, good morning. Did we lose that call?
We lost that particular
dropped call there. So do well to call us, please, and let's know your opinion. It seems to be like a very heated conversations around the country this morning. Interim government is one of the stories that have, you know, been on the front pages of all national dailies today. Nigerians are asking, where do we go from here? A lot of people are dissatisfied with the election result, but is the interim government the best at this point in time? Let's keep your calls coming. As interim government the best at this point in time? We definitely have some Nigerians say that yes, it is. Some Nigerians say no, it is not. But I think that we need the best for the country, actually.
And do we think that, you know, the interim government is the best for the country? A lot of analysts may say otherwise. But hello, good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. Turn down the volume of the television set and then go ahead, please.
It's Barnabas from Kaduna.
Barnabas, is that what she said?
Yes, my worry.
What's your name, please? What's your name?
Barnabas.
All right, go ahead.
My name.
Barnabas from Kaduna. Go ahead.
Barnabas from Kaduna. Go ahead, sir. Good morning.
Yes. My take in this issue is that why they saying they have uncovered? Why are they saying they have arrested?
Did we lose that call? Okay, Barnabas, I think that's all he was saying.
Yeah,
why don't
major questions.
Yes, why are you saying you have uncovered? What then somewhere along the line, all of that information gets lost. We do not see details. Remember, we were bringing up the issue earlier when we heard Fani Kayode had initially hinted Nigerians that this conversation was going on in the works somewhere. And then the DSS had invited him, I think that was a month ago, just before the election started. And then he came out again to apologize. Oh, I'm sorry, I spoke too hastily. Nothing of that sort is going on. But yet, that same DSS that invited Fani Kayode came out yesterday to tell us that, I mean, like one of our headlines for this morning, you know, plots for interim government real. You know, it's not suddenly an hasty statement anymore by the likes of Fani Kayode and all the likes. So there's a lot of questions brewing. And when you're talking about an interim government, the part of the intelligence that should be discovered around this is what do they intend to achieve? That's something we should also be looking at.
Yeah, very big questions there. What are they intending to
We have a
achieve?
caller on the line. Hello, good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from? Turn down the volume of the television set. Our voice is competing, please. Thank you. Good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Please, can you do well to turn down the volume of the television set? Turn it down completely. Okay,
Please,
fantastic.
everyone, do well to turn down the volume of television set before you place a call across to us so we can hear you. If you're also having issues getting across to us through the phone lines, you can also send us WhatsApp and text messages. And just, background on this, just so we are clear, things that the DSS have pointed out. With this, some key players have been identified. That is one. Let's take this call. Okay. Hello. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, my people.
Good morning.
How was your night?
Fine, thank you. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Akachuku. I'm calling from Lagos.
All right, good morning, Akachuku.
See, my people, in this Nigeria, we always, a lot of people, let me say few, always like to support evil. To me, in my own opinion, I believe in interim government. And now DSS are coming out to, say they want to arrest people that say it. But DSS is there and seeing a lot of evil that going on in Nigeria. When they are doing presidential election, when they are doing governor's election and the House of Reps, they are seeing all the evil and the atrocity. The way people thought are killing and, kidnapping the ballot paper and whatever, they are there. Now, people are saying the way forward in Nigeria, the way everybody will be happy and see what is going on. They are fighting to, being fast to impose somebody in us in Nigeria. We are fighting, doing everything to impose somebody we say we don't want.
All right.
I believe in government issue. They will ask who people want to make the rule, to rule them. You see? This Nigeria, I don't know. As I'm talking to you people now, I'm feeling headed because I don't like what is going on in Nigeria.
All right, thank you so much, Akachi.
A lot of Nigerians
Final opinion that I'm supporting the interim government.
All right, thank you so much, Akachuku from Lagos. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. But just like I said earlier, Nigerians will definitely have diverse opinions on this particular issue. But the bottom line is, if we are having an interim government or there are plots to, force an interim government, then instead of the DSS coming out, to make it open, to Nigerians, I think that they should do what they are supposed to do as an intelligence gathering unit, or body. Now, this is an intelligence information, and it's not supposed to be in the open. I think that that's where a lot of netizens are clamping down on, DSS for all that has happened in the past few hours. It's not something that you bring out to the open. It's something that you use as an intelligence information to work so that you get the culprits. But let's take this caller. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hi, good morning. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
Good morning. This is Kingsley calling from Enugu State.
Kingsley from
good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Please go ahead, sir. Okay, so we just have to put down that call. I think Kingsley is not ready.
Yeah,
so many noise in his background.
So, but something we're going to look at is the fact that 6 things are clear about this whole interim government conversation. Some key players have been identified. Various options are being weighed because, like I'm saying, it's not like throwing the baby on the bathwater all out. We need to look at some in-depth things about this. Stakeholders must be watchful. And now that is where we are going to piggyback on after this particular call.
Okay.
Hello, good morning. What's your name and where you are calling from?
I am calling from Adamawa State, Ganye in particular.
All right. What's your name?
My name is Abdurrahman Bamanga Amadou.
Okay, Amadou. All right. Please go ahead. Let's hear your thoughts.
If DSS say that there is a plot, let them arrest them. Let them arrest them and indicate and name and give them and indicate them and arrest them.
Okay.
Let them arrest them.
All right, thank you.
Thank
I
you
think
very
you've made your
much.
point. I think
right,
you
I
have
think
made
that's
your point.
basically
That's it. I think at this point we'll just take a very short breather, and when we come back, we'll definitely be joining our guest this morning, still talking about the outcomes of the just concluded 2023 general elections. What has the participation of women been like, and where do we move from here at this point in time? Just stay with us. We'll be right back.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Welcome back. This is still Rise and Shine, and we're beaming live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Of course, we have been bringing you several conversations of things happening across the country, especially with the DSS bringing us fresh information of our plotted interim government. But